I am called Ayisha Siddiqa. I was born and raised in a tribal community-esque in northern Pakistan. I refer to myself as a storyteller, a land defender.
What is the current situation in Pakistan, a country that was hugely affected by the floods last year, which resulted in the displacement of over 33 million people?
What was a climate disaster, natural disaster, then became a healthcare disaster, then it became a women and gender issue, and now all of that, it's still all of that. Now it is a hunger crisis. My country is experiencing a crisis of such magnitude, and a drought is expected to come next year. I don't know where things are going to go, but the political instability is so high right now.
As part of a very moving discourse of yours in New York last year, you said, "To hell with your sustainability, my people are dying." How, in your opinion, should we challenge greenwashing and very shallow sustainability pledges?
So I just came back from the World Economic Forum, and I think sustainability and ESG markers and SDG markers are being taken on by corporations as companies as the most that they can do to combat climate, and they're being put on like pins. Everybody has their SDG pin. Everybody has their sustainability pin that they're wearing on their chest. Well, previously it was like pretending the climate crisis doesn't exist. Now it is the same fossil fuel companies, it is the same corporations changing their logos, putting on a green hat, and being the leaders of a renewable transition.
I would like to play the devil's advocate here and ask you in very practical terms, how can we kick the fossil fuel industry out of every aspect of society, as defended by Polluters Out, a youth movement that you're a part of?
It's a drug, right? And we're running out of it. And then when the withdrawal symptoms hit, we're not going to know how to deal with it. Collectively, we're not going to know how to deal with it. The Ukraine and Russia war is a fine example of that. When the drug is running out, when the thing that we have become so heavily dependent on is running out, there's just economic fall, there's chaos, there's rent that people cannot pay, there's lack of water, there's just and then a country like Germany, which was promoting mitigation at the UN, opens a new mine. The fossil fuel industry has its foot in every single part of society, every single part, from the politicians that we elect, to the conferences on climate change that is held, to my ability to transport from one area to another, to the heating in my house. It's there. Yes, I acknowledge this. But in order for us to have just systematic change, local change, and personal change, it must actually be initiated at the top level, so it trickles down. And it's not being initiated at the top level.
Ayisha, could you please better describe what you said recently in Davos about some of the people who are left behind when we speak about the most vulnerable communities to the impacts of the climate crisis?
Vulnerability for topical and culturally, we are acknowledging it's young people and children, because when climate change happens, especially for young children, toddlers, they cannot do anything to escape. Two, women, because women are twice as likely to experience the detrimental effects of climate change, but also have to live through the consequences, because as climate change increases, so does lack of jobs insecurity increases, and therefore domestic violence increases. So they are vulnerable. Black and brown communities in the global north are vulnerable to historic racism. We are redlined. We cannot buy property in areas that are environmentally safe because it's expensive. And we have historically been prevented from having educations, been prevented from accumulating wealth, been prevented from so many things. And then indigenous groups, because they don't have the infrastructures to fight off the warding of climate change, but they are the areas, indigenous lands are the areas that are going into to be tapped for exploitation. One class of vulnerability we constantly leave out are the citizens of unstable governments. Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, that whole belt that we now consider like the aftermath of the war on terror is experiencing climate disaster like no other, and people are not talking about it. And it is so extremely interesting because that is also the area of the world that the United States, the UK, and the West went into to get oil. So what about the citizens of unstable governments, where in fact climate crisis has gone beyond comprehension, and they don't have the education, the technical language, the political stability, the court systems, you name it. They don't even have that to cry out, hey, we're experiencing climate change. And I think this issue needs to not only be looked at for the solutions end, but like when we talk about representation of people, that really, really needs to be looked at, because what's going to happen on the other end is these governments are unstable right now, but that is our future. That's where we're collectively headed towards.
And what are your impressions of the COP of biodiversity that you attended for the first time last year in Canada?
At COP15, the thing that governments were pushing for with corporations was a kind of biodiversity offsetting. So you plant trees in one part of the world to make up for the fact that you are cutting down trees in another part of the world. And also you disqualify the species, the biodiversity, the nature, the time it will take for the thing that you just destroyed to grow. But you plant trees other places, and it will create a system of imperialism, but instead of debt being the mechanism where countries gain power, now it's land, now it's biodiversity, now it's species, now it's resources, and biodiversity is an untapped market.
And how are you feeling in relation to the next climate conference later this year?
My organization is called Polluters Out. And the president of this conference is the CEO of an oil company. So I think the conflict of interest is beyond mind-boggling. Frankly, as somebody who's been trying to work to change these systems, and I can tell you how difficult it is. It is so hard. It is so slow. It is so bureaucratic. Every single word counts. I'm done with the COP. COP increasingly every year is becoming a joke. This year it's going to be more panels, more talking, more public speaking tournament. And it's a way for countries to applaud themselves, tap themselves on the back for doing the bare minimum. Think about it sometimes as like, if this was any other situation, if lowering your carbon emissions was just homework that you had to do, it is 23 years late. The laziness of our governments and politicians is mind-boggling to me. Because in no other sector would this be tolerated. You'd be fired from your job if you did this. So why are you so lazy? I don't understand.
From what you just said, all of what you said, one gets the impression that you are kind of not only anxious, but also a bit pessimistic or even desperate. How can one be an advocate in such a state of mind?
Experiencing climate anxiety and pessimism actually is not a signal of mental incapacity or illness or a problem. It actually means you're sane. Accepting and also articulating that pessimism means that you are attuned to reality as well. I'm not in the business of selling false hopes and false dreams. I leave that to the politicians. I'm trying to do the best I can to preserve what I have and what we have while we still have the time. That's why I'm acknowledging all of the unsavory facts with a perhaps naive, perhaps childish sense of hope. Because in order to really say what we have left, We're going to need more love than ever before. We're going to need more blind hope than ever before. And we're going to need more blind commitment than ever before. And if I can be one of the people who has that, then so be it.